These are this afternoon's top stories. Premier Brantley announces duties and VAT removed from soaps and disinfectants. Puerto Rico's governor imposes curfew to combat coronavirus, and Biden and Sanders blast Trump over coronavirus response. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Monday, the 16th of March, 2020. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Nationally, Premier of Nevis Honorable Mark Brantley has announced with immediate effect all duties and value-added tax or VAT be removed from hand sanitizers, disinfectants, and protective gear in Nevis. Mr. Brantley made the announcement just after 9 a.m. on Monday, March 16th, as he delivered a national address on the coronavirus or COVID-19 outbreak.
As Minister of Finance, I have directed that with immediate effect, all duties and VAT be suspended from hand sanitizers, hand sanitizing dispensing machines, sanitizing aerosol sprays such as Lysol, soaps, disinfectants, masks, gloves, gowns, and other protective clothing, and ventilators and/or nebulizers for those seeking to invest in their own equipment.
The Premier said that he has also written to the banks and financial houses on Nevis, asking them to, quote, proactively manage their relationships with the Nevisian people to ensure that proper arrangements can be made to those clients, especially those in the tourism industry who might suffer a fall-off in pay during this very difficult period, end quote. Mr. Brantley then appealed to the business sector to maintain steady prices, warning them to avoid hiking prices as we prepare for the effects of this pandemic. In other news, U.S. cruise lines have announced suspension of cruising in the United States amid COVID-19 concerns. A statement from the Tourism Authority said several cruise lines will not be visiting St. Kitts over the next few weeks as a result of this suspension. According to the statement, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, Celebrity Cruise Lines, Norwegian Cruise Lines, and Carnival Cruise Lines have suspended cruising from March 13th to April 11th. Princess Cruise Lines has suspended cruising until May 10th. Viking Cruise Lines and MSC Cruise Lines have suspended cruising until April 30th, and Disney Cruise Lines until March 29th. The release said, in addition, Sea Dream canceled its call for Monday, 16th March. And as we wrap up, for the first time in the history of the United States Army, its 10 senior geospatial intelligence technical advisors are all black. And Mitchell Descent, a Kittitian, is one of them. Chief Warrant Officer Mitchell Descent of St. Kitts is one of the 10 guides, as the U.S. Army collectively refers to its 10 senior geo-intel technical advisors. The 10 guides gathered in February for a group photo at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, D.C. in honor of Black History Month. Descent joined the U.S. Army in 1996 after graduating from 6th Form in 1995 and doing a brief stint at the planning unit in St. Kitts. Mitchell Descent is an alumnus of Newton Ground Primary School and Sandy Point High School, now the Charles E. Mills Secondary School. He spent his formative years between Newton Ground and Trafalgar Village. Last Christmas, Mitchell Descent funded the principal's plaques for the Newton Ground Primary School's 60th anniversary and made this gift on behalf of his mother, Lorna Jeffers, and family. On the regional scene, Puerto Rico's governor announced an island-wide curfew and the closings of non-essential businesses to contain the spread of the coronavirus. In a televised message on Sunday, Governor Wander Vasquez signed into effect Executive Order 202-0023, which seeks to contain and manage the impact of COVID-19 in Puerto Rico. Governor Vasquez said that Puerto Ricans should be in their homes 24/7 to try to halt the spread of the virus. The new guidelines state all businesses should close with the exception of pharmacies, supermarkets, banks, or those related to the food or pharmaceutical industries. Restaurants will remain open, but is limited to those that can offer their services by way of drive-through, carry-out, or delivery. Hotels will remain open, however. Public areas and amenities in hotels such as spas, pools, and recreational areas must remain closed. All casinos will remain closed until March 31st, 2020, and the San Juan Bay is currently closed for all cruise ship vessels. So far, the island has 5 confirmed coronavirus cases and 17 suspected cases. The coronavirus pandemic has prompted Colombia to shut its land border with Venezuela, where thousands of Venezuelans journey every day looking for food and medicine. Al Jazeera's Teresa Bo reports on that story.
For many Venezuelans, the border with Colombia is a lifeline for surviving the economic crisis in their nation. But on Saturday, Colombia's President Iván Duque announced its closure to contain the spread of COVID-19.
The border crossings with Venezuela will be closed starting at 5 a.m. It will be done as a protection measure against the situation that is also occurring in the neighboring country.
On Friday, Venezuela confirmed 2 cases of coronavirus. But many fear that number could be higher as the country struggles with a humanitarian crisis that has left hospitals without basic supplies, including soap and hand sanitizer. Doctors in Venezuela say they're not ready to cope with the common flu, let alone a global pandemic.
Most of these hospitals are not at an acceptable standard. About 12 of the military hospitals are not qualified at all to be able to tend to patients, even with the common flu.
President Nicolás Maduro has suspended schools and banned public gatherings. He's asked people to wear a mask when using the metro in the capital, Caracas.
Sencillo.
It's simple. Wear a face mask. It's an order for everyone in the next days and weeks. Better safe than sorry.
In Brazil, the government has announced $1 billion to strengthen its public healthcare system. President Jair Bolsonaro tested negative for COVID-19 on Friday. That's after his communication officer tested positive after a trip to the United States, where he met with President Donald Trump. Bolsonaro is to remain in isolation and will be tested again.
Even though the number of cases in Latin America remain relatively low, they're likely to increase in the next few weeks. And that's why governments are stepping up efforts to try to control it. In Argentina, they're controlling cruises in ports. They're also canceling flights and imposing mandatory isolations of those who travel to the United States, Europe, and China.
Schools and public events are also being canceled as countries try to adapt to what may come ahead. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Buenos Aires.
On the international scene, the Trump administration has come under stinging criticism for its handling of the coronavirus outbreak, while the economy has gone into freefall following the White House's failure to take decisive action. Late on Sunday, the U.S. Federal Reserve announced emergency measures aimed at stanching the economic fallout of the corona pandemic. It cut the benchmark interest rate to near zero, bringing it to levels not seen since 2008's financial crisis. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher reports from Washington, D.C.
From the President of the United States, words aimed at comforting Americans.
Relax. We're doing great. It all will pass.
Moments later, from the man heading the drive against the virus, a starkly different message.
The worst is yet ahead for us. It is how we respond to that challenge.
The number of confirmed cases in the U.S. is now more than 3,000. States are shutting down bars and restaurants. Curfews are starting to be introduced. The face of America is changing. At airports, chaos as the extended European travel ban kicks in.
Where are they going? They're not going anywhere.
Staff carrying out health screenings have been overwhelmed. The governor of Illinois blamed the Trump administration for a lack of planning and foresight. He didn't get the response he wanted.
Well, here's what I got. I got a call at about 11 o'clock last night after that tweet from a White House staffer who yelled at me about the tweet.
The administration at its now daily briefing admitted mistakes were made.
The lines, again, that we saw overnight at a limited number of airports, including Chicago, are unacceptable. We've adjusted our processes. We continue to surge personnel.
At the same briefing, when asked how many ventilators the U.S. had to help patients with breathing difficulties, the government secretary in charge said this.
We don't disclose concrete numbers on particular items for national security purposes, but we have many ventilators, thousands and thousands of ventilators.
A quick internet search reveals one study says the number is around 160,000. America's central bank has also cut interest rates to almost zero to try and protect the economy, the most dramatic intervention since the global financial crisis in 2008. There's a clear worry that even when the medical recovery begins, the financial shock will be felt for a very long time. The two leading contenders for the Democratic presidential nomination faced off in Washington in the latest debate. No audience, and both men kept 6 feet apart. Neither convinced the Trump administration is on top of the crisis.
First thing we have got to do, whether or not I'm president, is to shut this president up right now, because he is undermining the doctors and the scientists who are trying to help the American people.
This is a crisis. This is like we are being attacked from abroad. This is something that is of great consequence. This is like a war. And in a war, you do whatever is needed to be done to take care of your people.
This is now what Donald Trump hoped it would not be, a significant election issue. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
In Ghana, thousands of illegal gold mines are threatening farmland, destroying the landscape and poisoning water supplies, leaving some communities struggling to find drinking water. Here's more.
The River Pra in southern Ghana is contaminated with mercury and cyanide. And vegetation is drying up in Ghana's heartland of cocoa, the main ingredient of chocolate. The river is also vital for fishing, farming and water. The pollution is blamed on thousands of small-scale gold mines. Working round the clock at this one, boys as young as 15 and dozens of men. What they're doing is illegal. Many mines have been here for years, despite a government crackdown to close them. They operate deep in the forest, hidden from the police and a military task force. Attracted by the precious metal, miners come from different parts of Ghana and neighboring countries, as well as China. They say it's their only source of income, regardless of the risks and injuries.
I was able to provide money and help my family in the Volta region until the government decided to ban small-scale and illegal mining. Now police harass us all the time. Some of us try to run away and others fall into the muddy pits. Those who can't swim get injured or die.
Joe had his hand cut off 2 years ago while mining. He received no compensation.
There are no decent jobs for the uneducated and poor young people. If we had training opportunities provided by the government, it would be better.
Makeshift pumping stations are used to divert rivers.
So this is the gold. So when they go and burn it, when they burn it, then to become yellow, it will become yellowish, the gold color.
On this day, these 5 miners found just a few grams and sold it for $120 shared between them. Ghana is one of Africa's leading gold exporters. President Nana Akufo-Addo has pledged to continue his fight against illegal mining. His government regulates the industry.
The community mining scheme, that is meant to cover a lot more people in a community sense, to get people in a community who want to get involved in mining to be able to do so, but do so properly. The same law applies, the small-scale mining law.
But critics and environmental activists blame the lack of political will and corruption for government promises falling short.
So most of these funding sources have been from foreigners and then have been from the top political elite in the society. That is the reason why battling illegal mining has also been difficult.
While environmental groups call for tighter regulations, miners say they have no choice but to continue digging for their survival. Rahila Mohammed, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy. Winds are calm. Today's temperature will peak at 21 degrees Celsius. That's 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are reaching 6 to 8 feet with northerly swells of 5 feet. The high surf advisory remains in effect. Expect partly cloudy conditions with a moderate chance of showers today and a 20% or slight chance of showers tonight. Sunset today will be at 6:21 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:16 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.